Anyway, I think I will start. We have paucity of time, and I've been given 5 minutes. It's a daunting task to speak about anything in 5 minutes, let alone partition. Before I begin, good evening and regards to the distinguished guests today, our Honorable Chancellor Sir, our Pro-Chancellor Sir and Vice-Chancellor Sir, and of course the Director of the Indian Museum. So without further ado, there is a place very close to where we are sitting today, 151 Beliaghata Road. Some of the older generation might be aware. I don't know whether the young students are aware. We are talking about Partition Remembrance Day on 14th August 1947. It was at this 151 Beliaghata Road, Hyderi Manzil, the building, where Gandhi brought Suravardi. Why was this important? Well, Suravardi is accused by many, if you have interacted with your grandparents who saw the Great Calcutta killings, and if you have had relatives to speak with, you will see that all of them have this particular claim that Suravardi failed to contain the violence of the Great Calcutta killing. Now, Gandhi insisted that Suravardi stand beside him when he was trying to pacify a mob which had gathered near the Hyderi Manzil. Gandhi was supposed to move on to Noakhali, and people asked him that he stay because Calcutta was restless. There were chances of greater violence in Calcutta. Gandhi's acumen, his political daring, you call it machismo, whatever, on the day was actually able to contain violence, which could have taken gigantic proportions. But there is another lesson there. The mob that had surrounded Hyderi Manzil was largely a mob of locals who had a grouse against Suravardi, who had heard that he had failed to contain violence a year ago. These locals are also Hindu locals, very distinct from the Mia Bagan Bosti close by, which was largely Muslim. Now, this incident, very close to where we are today, 151 Beliaghata Road, is just one of the incidents where violence did not take place. Now, let me tell you about incidents of violence. Again, some of the older, my senior colleagues would be aware of this, but in 1947, when Bengal was divided, all of you have visited Jalpaiguri or Darjeeling during your vacations. There was actually no way to travel from Calcutta to Darjeeling or Jalpaiguri without crossing over through Bihar. The partition had meant that North Bengal and South Bengal did not have a direct land route, which brings us to a tiny place, some of you might be aware, called Aluabari, very close to modern day Islampur. It's the story of a place called Kishanganj, not Islampur, but on the other side of Bihar. Islampur was actually carved out later in 1956 from Kishanganj and Greater Purnia in Bihar and given to Bengal. But the story of Kishanganj is fascinating. Many Muslims from Kishanganj actually went over to East Pakistan during partition, thinking that this is the promised land. Within 3 years' time, 1950 onwards, once the Nehru-Liaquat Pact was signed, almost 250,000 of those Muslim former Indians returned. The violence against them was so terrible in proportions. A majority of them came from that very Kishanganj, Greater Purnia, which later would be carved out and given to Bengal so Bengal could retain a direct land route between southern Bengal and northern Bengal. Now, a third instance. This is the final example I will give you. Many of you are aware of Khulna, right? But you might not be aware of how close we are to Khulna. The Khulna district actually borders our current Kolkata 24 Pargana district in the undivided map of Bengal. So essentially, when the people of Khulna had unfurled the Indian flag on partition day and onwards, they had no clue that the Ratcliffe Line, which would be, by the way, formally declared on 17th August, had actually ensured that they fall in now East Pakistan. The reason for this were many. I will not go into the details. Many of the Congress leaders of the time believed that Murshidabad had to be retained because of the interconnected waterways, and Khulna was a place which could be sacrificed. Why is this sacrifice of Khulna, the people who stayed behind, so important? Khulna saw a great degree of violence during partition, but it doesn't end there. I was not reading anything out, but here is something that I want to read out for you. If lessons are to be learned from the past, then one enduring lesson for me as a historian has been the cyclical nature of episodic violence, which somehow almost always manages to entrench itself firmly in the spaces of their genesis. Think of Khulna, the hub of East Pakistan's jute trade and industry, which saw violence during partition. Liaquat Ali Khan, the premier of Pakistan, understood that Khulna had riches that it could now open Pakistan's, let Pakistan reach its potential. In his global tour in 1950, he was touring the United States. He highlights a plan to build jetties and wharves and increase Pakistan's cargo handling capacity to 3 million tons per year. Could you guess the district for the chosen secondary port of Pakistan? Khulna. In the same speech, he laments that Pakistan, despite producing 75% of the world's best quality raw jute, hardly had any jute mills. This is already well known that 75 to 80% of the jute producing units went over to the other side, the fertile grounds. 80% of Bengal's fertile grounds went over to the other side, East Pakistan, while the mills largely remained near the Hooghly in what is today's West Bengal. So Liaquat wants to increase the production. But what happens in 1971? Khulna, the hub of East Pakistan's jute trade and industry, saw the worst kind of violence in March 1971, beginning with violent skirmishes between Bengali freedom fighters and Razakars. Awami Leaguers fought for their independence. On March 4th, 1971, Khulna saw bloodbath of, you can even call it a pogrom. The non-Bengali population, yes, they have also left some of their oral narratives, who later migrated to West Pakistan after Bangladesh became independent, argued and recorded in their narratives that they had never seen the kind of violence, their kith and kin had not seen it in any other part of Bangladesh compared to what they had seen in Khulna. So life comes a full circle. The very Khulna which got left behind, which had unfurled the Indian flag only to realize 2 days later that they are not a part of India, saw the worst kind of violence in 1971. During the Bangladesh Liberation War. This, in a sense, sums up the partition of the subcontinent, that violence has been episodic, it has been cyclical, it has made us come back to where we started, and it has continued to haunt us. As I wrap up my talk, I will suggest that a small clip without the audio from Komal Gandhar is played out as I leave you with a few questions. I didn't do a PPT because it would have been difficult to manage the PPT where the console is at the back and I'm speaking from here. But I'll just let Komal Gandhar play out. And I will just raise a few questions. Sorry, I will just let Komal Gandhar play out and I will just raise a few questions. No answers. You can think of the answers in your head. Bengal, which along with Bombay paid 3/4 of the total income tax of India, this is around partition, while having 1/5 of India's population, 3/4 of the income tax, while 1/5 of its population. Why did it agree to the partition? Bengal paid 3 rupees for every 10 rupees collected as income tax in India. Why did it agree to the partition? It was the land which stood to lose the most, highly industrialized, from a 30% industrial sector where nearly 53% of its population was employed. It came down to 17% in the industrial output. Why would we agree to this? Simply out of the fear of violence if there was a consolidation of the Muslims and Dalits. I have our Provici academics ma'am here. She would be able to explain this better. I'm an historian. But I think recent research has suggested Montalvo, Renal, and Querol polarization index that wherever there is a minority, episodic violence is a part and parcel of that society. So why did Bengal, which stand to lose the most, if you look at the Komal Gandhar scene, you will look at them lamenting what they have left behind, agree to partition? I will let you ponder on this without giving answers to this. Thank you. I think I have kept it within 5 minutes, if not a bit more. So 3 episodes of cyclic violence and some questions on why did we agree to losing everything for the sake of a small piece of land which we can finally call ours. Thank you.